Hi there. I'm coming to you from my basement for reasons that will soon become apparent. I'm going to talk this evening about INFPs and social relationships. Now, I've put this off and put this off because it seems to me like this whole topic is so blindingly obvious that I just feel foolish talking about it. I also feel like potentially it could be misinterpreted that I'm saying stuff that folks may find even sociopathic, and I hope that it's not taken the wrong way. I finally decided to discuss this topic because in the past there have been other things where I figured, well, the entire world must understand what I'm talking about. And then it turns out that people had no concept or they completely see things in different ways. And therefore, I thought I'd throw this out there. And if you're an INFP and this resonates with you, please let me know. If you're an INFP and you think this is like completely bonkers, well, please let me know that I'm nuts and I will adjust appropriately. But in the past, I've talked a couple of times about the concept that INFPs, as they grow into adolescence, become adults, need to build a world around them that's in accordance to their values, or they need to build the world in an image that, in a way that fits their ideals. So by that world, I mean the social world. And by that, I mean putting together friends and acquaintances and other people in your social circles that will resonate enough with your authenticity, or at least not conflict with it, so that you can be yourself without being in fear of a lot of friction and getting in trouble. So here's the map I've put together. Thanks to tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, I happen to have this mat and a bunch of figures. And what I wanted to show here is just in concept how the INFP works with relationships. So here you have in the center, the INFP. You see in the immediate vicinity, I don't have anyone who's adjacent. There's a reason for that. That's specific to me. And that is that when I don't have really close friendships, at least not at this time, it's something I choose not to do because those close friendships take a lot of energy and commitment, and there are a lot of responsibility, and I really don't have that kind of energy currently. So even who I'd consider to be my friends, I keep at something of an arm's length nowadays. And that's why we've got in this, the adjacent squares are empty, but you get this idea that there's more kind of what you would call friends, closer to the INFP center. And then as you get further out, you have your acquaintances and other more casual folks. And there are different groups that I've represented here. So friends from childhood or from the workplace or family and relatives or hobbies and various other venues. The idea being that even though these are not quantitative in the way that I'm representing, as in you wouldn't say this person is, this close versus that person is that close. There is a qualifiable difference that the INFP has. And I'd say with every person that the INFP has in their life, in their social circles, they could easily describe the nature of the relationship with the person, with each person who is in their greater social circle, and not just describe it, but not necessarily describe it with words, but they feel it, they know what each relationship is like. So going back to this, what happens here is that the closer folks in are those that are perhaps more closely aligned to the INFP's own values, whereas the ones that are further at the periphery, the acquaintances, may be those that are neutral or in some respects aligned and others counter to the INFP's core values. And to move closer, it would take, say, demonstrated acts of being in accordance with the INFP's values. So you see some demonstrated things that impress the INFP, you would potentially move closer, representing an increase in the quality of the relationship in the eyes of the INFP. What you might see is somebody who's then working counter to the values of the INFP might move further out. in the relationship scale, meaning a decrease in the quality of the relationship. And in some cases, somebody might do something that's so discouraging to the INFP that they would move somebody directly off the board. And what that would mean is potentially the person that's off the board is what somebody would describe as being soft ghosted. That is, they're not removed entirely from the INFP's life, not as a hard thing, but they would be at best sort of a passive friend that if they're bugging the INFP, then they'd sort of give them the time of day. They might be with them, but they're not going to seek that person out anymore. And they'll try to avoid them actively, potentially. Now, there's a couple tricky things here that people need to understand about the way that INFPs think. And one of them is that regardless of where you are on this map, the INFP is more or less going to treat you the same way. That is, if you're out here or if you're further up, it doesn't matter what the INFP thinks of the quality of the relationship, you're going to have pretty much that same, a similar feel when you're with the INFP regardless. The difference is that the folks that are closer in will tend to get more of the INFP's attention, where those people who are further at the periphery are less likely to get the INFP's attention and priorities and energies. So that's where things can get a little bit convoluted, because there are people who will be out here in the periphery that are being really treated really well by the INFP, and they think that they're close friends, potentially because the INFP is being so nice to them, until they either fall off the map or they see that the INFP is spending a lot more of energy and time and priorities with other people, and that will get them upset, thinking that the INFP is a fair weather friend or is doing some sort of manipulation where they're just pretending to be nice to that person. And that's not the case at all. What's happening is just that the INFP wants to be good to everybody, but they have to spend their limited energies on certain people, and they're going to do it first with those people that align the most with their values. Another thing to be aware of here is that if you go from being on the board to falling off the board and you sort of disappear, or the INFP disappears from your life, again, it's like you're treated well, and all of a sudden, bang, you're gone. And that, again, can upset people thinking, what did I do to deserve this? I'm sorry, it's just the way that things work, that it's, we'll treat you nicely because being kind to people is important. But once you're no longer in that circle, it's like, well, rather than treating you unkindly, just let you go. Yet another thing to think about with this is that I think one of the differences you'd see between INFPs and INFJs is that an INFJ will probably give feedback to fix a person if there's things that need to be corrected, whether that means that the INFJ would want to improve the quality of the relationship, or they're just doing it to make the person into, fixing the stuff that's wrong with them for the sake of it. So I don't know if that would be a direct impact, but they do mess around with people to turn them into something better. The INFP is the opposite. We've got the prime directive. That is, you have to be you, and we will let you be the nature of whatever you are. We're not going to change you. But if we don't agree with what you are, then we will put you out to the periphery. But we will absolutely not change who you are, because we don't have the right to do that. It would be messing around with your own free will and your own inner nature to do it. So that's where you have the system that INFPs tend to observe and be kind until the point that you're off the map, and then you'll no longer see them. So for a final thought in all of this, I wanted to bring up the concept of limerence. Now, I'm going to have my own idea of what limerence means that I'll introduce here, just because it's sort of different from the official definition, but it's the concept of falling in love with someone's potential. And that can happen with just about anyone here on the map. So with the INFP, it could be someone who's closer in or someone who's further out in the terms of the quality of the relationship, the way the INFP sees it. But they see something in your potential and they adore it. They fall in love with it. They think it's just the most wonderful thing, and they see what you could be. And it's something that they absolutely just think is wonderful. And that can create some potential friction or embarrassing moments where one thinks that the INFP is really into them, where it's not them that they're crazy about, it's what they could be that they really like to see. And so as I've gotten older, I've been more careful about that idea of limerence. But there are people, whether they're of both genders, any age, any appearance, it's not something that's related to romance or a sexual thing. It's just seeing someone for who they could be and falling in love with that potential. Anyway, one final thought in all of this. And I'm going to have to... Oh, right. One final thought in all of this. In the earlier video that I talked about the INFP child, how you grow up and you retain all of these negative emotional memories that then help guide your moral compass. This set of relationships, this set of social circles and all of this, these are my positive emotional relationships. When I think about all of the people that I've got in my social circles, the folks with whom I surround myself, that's the stuff that I cherish. Those are the memories and then the nostalgia that I really, that warm me, that sustain me. And these are the people that I intensely care about. So when you think about, my earlier video about the INFP child and all of these negative memories, well, here's something that gives the INFP reason to go forward, because those, whether it's friends or acquaintances, it's just the nature of those relationships is so wonderful. And the feelings of all of those people are so warm that it's something that makes life worth living. So anyway, with that, have a good evening or day, wherever you may be. I hope this has been helpful. Leave a comment if this makes sense. Leave a comment if it doesn't make sense. And, until the next video.